Hello everyone, Stakuya here, and I'm here today to talk swords. And though this video is not technically sponsored, I was given a new sword by my friends over there at Medieval Depot. So I'm going to put a link down in the description below. Basically, if you want to go to their website, they've actually given me a code for 15% off. So hey, if you want a sword, if you want armor, if you want anything like that, so long as it's not already on sale, you can get 15% off of it. And that's some pretty nice stuff. So, anyway, let's talk about swords. Specifically, sabers. Oh god, I love sabers. Now, to explain what a saber is, because we need to talk both about its history and what actually makes a saber a saber. Now, at its most basic, the saber was a long, single-edged sword with a thick spine. This was often associated with cavalry swords because of their effectiveness as light cavalry during Napoleonic Wars, and European cavalry such as hussars. Now, these were used by infantry units, especially going into the 19th century, but they were not exactly the most common. It was something that was more so associated with cavalry. It was a favorite for horsemen due to their ability to deliver a powerful slashing blow from horseback. Because as you are riding by and coming down for a downward sweep or for an overhand slash, yeah, this was something that could very easily cleave a person. Now, the saber is not a European invention. And I know that I talked about this, specifically talking about Napoleonic warfare and hussars, which are very obviously European, but the saber itself, its origin is not. The word saber comes from the French sabre, or saber, which in turn came from the Hungarian, and I'm going to butcher this, so I apologize for that, zablia, and the Polish zabla. Now, this in turn comes from the Kipchak Turkic word selabe, which literally means to cut. The first saber-like swords were used in Hungary and Kievan Rus, and these were spoils of war, or rather copies of swords that were used by Turkic and Arabic peoples. So these would be things such as the kilij, the pulwar, the talwar, the saif, the shamshir, or the scimitar. And these weapons whose designs evoked a long tradition of mounted combat, and they descended from the Turco-Mongol sabers of the steppes going back several thousands of years. Now, the single-handed blade was ideal for riders, and the curved blade optimized the sword for downward slashing strikes against infantry from horseback. The hilt incorporated a handguard and a simple crossguard, which, when the sword was used from horseback, would not really have seen all that much use. The guard contributed much to its practicality as a dueling weapon for officers in the military and across Italy in the 19th century among fencers. It's actually funny. You think of dueling as for something like rapiers, but sabers in the 19th century were one of the primary dueling weapons that you would see in Italy. The saber was also used as a sidearm by dismounted units, though these were phased out in favor of knives and sword bayonets, as switching between a gun and a sword in combat would be fairly awkward. Indeed, the popularity of the saber actually dwindled by the mid-19th century as improvements in projectile weapons led to the development of the accurate long-range rifle, and thus that made cavalry charges and their associated weaponry as cavalrymen kind of obsolete. So this particular weapon that you see right here, this is a US 1860 light cavalry saber. Sorry about that. Also known as the M1860. So it was a long sword that was made of steel and brass used by the US cavalry from the American Civil War all the way till the end of the Indian Wars, and you even saw some use of this during the Spanish-American War. The M1860 saber received its name to distinguish it from the larger, heavier 1840 model that it had replaced. Like its predecessor, it also had a brass guard and leather-wrapped grip and a steel scabbard. But, unlike the M1840, this was actually smaller and easier to handle, so it wasn't nearly as broad a blade. Now, by the end of the Civil War, over 300,000 1860 sabers had been produced, though their use in the end did slow dramatically. Later on in the Civil War, large cavalry charges kind of became less common, and cavalry took on the role of skirmishers. Many replaced their sabers with extra revolvers, or they would just leave it in the saddle while fighting on foot, as repeating weapons drastically reduced the occurrence of melee combat, and what combat did occur could typically then be fought with either a bayonet or simply a knife. So, in the end, these things are beautiful. They most certainly did fall out of fashion. But that is not to say that they are not beautiful creations that I love deeply in my heart now today. Now, if you want one yourself, do feel free to check the description below. Besides that, I wish you all a good rest of your day. I'm going to be making several more videos here throughout the week. I'm trying to really get back into content creation, even if it's something short like this. I know that I've kind of neglected things on YouTube. It's been absolutely insane at work, so I do apologize for that. Well, if there's another type of sword, if there's anything else you want to see, please do let me know. And for my friends over there at Medieval Depot, I do, once again, thank you. And hey, look forward to the next one. You have a good rest of your day.